Welcome back, sports fans, to another episode of the Brew and Shaver Sports Podcast. Thank you for joining us. If you'll take a second and hit that subscribe button, we'd appreciate that a great deal. It's right there at the bottom of your screen. It means a lot to us for you to just tap that button and subscribe, so you'll always be kept up to date on new episodes and any special episodes that drop throughout this college football season.
Absolutely.
We had another exciting weekend of SEC football, Darren. Some big games played, some unexpected outcomes, some expected outcomes. And of course, it wouldn't be SEC football without a little bit of controversy on the field, particularly with the zebras on the field. So let's talk about our week 7 reactions. Darren, what stands out to you the most about this past weekend?
Well, I don't know how you, number one, you said that so well. I'm going to applaud how well you said that. I mean, is that
a clap? What?
I'm going to give it a full Kirby round of applause.
Where'd Darren go? How'd Kirby get on the show?
I'm back. I was just clapping. I'm back.
Just too bad.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know how. I mean, you're right. There were some incredible games with some unexpected results. The Texas OU game is obviously one that we did not see coming. As we talked about it, to be that kind of result. You know, Ole Miss was a crazy, just like, oh, is this really going to happen again, kind of a thing. But when you watch this weekend and everything that happened, man, the officiating, unfortunately for all the teams that played so hard on the field, the officiating is one of the biggest headlines of the week, and just and reasonably and justifiably so. And there's a mounting frustration that I think is the SEC, the front office or the central office, whatever their title is going to have to address it, because you can't. The missed calls are one thing, but when the things that happened this weekend start to happen and become more regular, this is an enormous issue, and there's entirely too much that goes into. I mean, you're not just affecting playoff. You're not just affecting school, what kind of revenue they get from TV deals. You're affecting NIL deals and what, how a player's contract looks like off the field. There are so many things that are being affected. And no matter what steps are taken, there's still going to be issues, because the referees at the end of the day are human, and everybody's going to miss something sometime. I get that. Nobody is calling for perfection, but where we are right now is so far from perfection that it's just not an acceptable standard. And the one that really, and there were so many, unfortunately, this weekend. Number one, anytime there's a review, I mean, goodness, you might as well. I'm gonna run outside, cook a meal on the grill for the entire family, come back in, and maybe catch the last 10 minutes of the conversation before they decide. I still have plenty of time. The reviews are just absolutely ridiculous, with zero transparency. Got to give it to the ACC for being willing to have that transparency. So that's ridiculous. But in the LSU South Carolina game, when that official stood in front of the punter to say there's been a substitution, you can't start the play, and then put his arms down and step back behind the punter, and then called threw the flag for I guess a legal substitution or whatever it was, once the play began, was just annoyingly ridiculous. Now, I was not as annoyed as Shane Beamer. Have mercy. I don't think I've ever seen that face on an adult human. So, wasn't that annoyed?
I saw it last year when they played LSU in Columbia.
Oh, that's right. He had pretty much the same face, didn't he? But I wish somebody could ask that official, that referee, the question. So, what were you doing there? What was supposed to happen? What was your expectation of that player? Was he supposed to hear you from behind him with 102,000, screaming Cajuns? He's all of a sudden supposed to pick your voice out. You can go now. What was your expectation? Completely and totally ridiculous. And unfortunately, that might not even be the most egregious example this weekend, but it really, really, really stood out to me. It's a shame with all the football that was played that is the reaction, that is the headline. But I don't know how it can't be. It seemed to be. It's building the level of what seems to be building every single week.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, Darren. Last Friday, my wife and I went to a high school football game, and you never know what kind of officiating you're going to get at the high school
Mhm.
level because a lot of states they're hurting for officials. They don't have enough, and the quality really you notice a big difference between a good officiating crew and one that's not so good.
Absolutely.
But it's high school football, and a lot of places the livelihood of those coaches is not dependent on whether or not they're 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old boys playing football out there execute or not, or they get, if the officiating's bad, it's
Right.
disappointing, but you roll with it. The stakes are so much higher in major college football. When you look at a
Mhm.
conference like the SEC, and it's so important to get it right. You mentioned the reviews. The reviews are killing the momentum of the game. We've got to be able to celebrate a touchdown without having to hold our breath for three
Mhm.
minutes while someone's walking over looking in a camera. In this day and age of instant replay and the technology that we have to instantly bring something up, we've got to figure out a way where we can expedite this process. Does the head official on the field have to go over and review? Why can't that be done in the booth? I really like the model that was it the XFL where they on instant replay they took you into the replay booth
Yeah.
and
Absolutely. Yeah.
and you
Mhm.
listen to the rationale.
Yep.
But even then, that took time. They've got to find a way to expedite this process. And
Mhm.
secondly, we've talked about it before. For some reason, there's this hesitancy to turn officiating into a full time job.
Right.
With so much money riding in major division one college football, there is revenue to make officials full-time positions where
Absolutely.
that's all they do to enhance your training, your development of officials. Uh, I think we really need to look at that because you brought out that huge mistake, and we know mistakes are going to happen. You look at with the Kirby Smart, you alluded to that earlier with the clapping or the timeout,
Mhm.
whatever it was, and there's more that we can mention. Of course, the human element in officiating, there's always going to be mistakes. Uh, but there's there are ways to improve the way that it's done, and to simply say, well, this is just the way it is, that's not acceptable.
Absolutely.
We've got to constantly be looking at ways to improve. And I have a lot of faith in Commissioner Greg Sankey. I think he cares about the integrity of the officiating. He cares about this conference, and I have no doubt that those conversations are taking place.
I agree completely. I mean, you cannot tell me as much time as he spends with the coaches of the sports, to his credit. That's very much a positive thing in every way. Uh, you know that he is just being pinged constantly right now by football coaches because what you alluded to and the point I made as well. The thing that seems to be going on right now is just how bad they seem to be. I don't, the mistakes are so glaring that it makes it even worse. It just makes it stands out even more. It's really,
Well,
really difficult right now.
Josh Pate's talked about it several
Hmm.
times already this season on his show. Matt Mitchell is poking fun at it on the videos that he puts out. There's a
And
lot of
the
chatter.
SEC shorts guys did the
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah. So it's becoming a more of a magnified issue, and I
Yeah,
think something's going to have to be done.
agree completely.
As much as we can sit here and twiddle our thumbs and complain about officiating, which is kind of a ritual in sports,
That's right.
let's
Well
move
said.
on to our updated power rankings as we head into week 8 in the SEC. These are the top 5 teams that Darren and I have come up with. There's a little bit of difference in our lists, starting with the top spot. Darren, I've got Alabama, a big win in Missouri. Missouri was looking at that game thinking this is going to be one of the biggest wins ever at
Yeah,
this stadium if we can beat Alabama. And they
absolutely.
gave it a shot, but in the end, Alabama was just too much. You've
Yeah,
got, as your number one, though, you've got the Aggies from A&M who are continuing. They put down a pesky Florida Gators team.
that's right. Yeah, it started out looking like it was going to be a little bit of a shootout, but they did what they needed to do. And last week one of my reactions to the week is when you look at Alabama and you look at Georgia, they are who we thought they were. They are who we thought they'd be. And Alabama did it again this week. Here we are. We're still winning, but to me, for my purposes in making this our power ranking or my power ranking, I, if at this point in the season you're still undefeated, I got to give that some credence. And so to me, that's what puts A&M at 1 and Ole Miss at 2. But also, regardless of the crazy thing is that Florida State loss just continues to look worse and worse. It didn't look like that bad of a loss that first week, but it just keeps looking worse and worse. But no matter how bad it seems to decline, the way they look afterwards seems to be, it's really kind of funny how those two things are opposing one another. So in spite of how bad that Florida State loss looks, man, Alabama just keeps it. Ty Simpson, hello. I mean, that dude is playing some ball right now from every angle. And you mentioned Missouri. I had to keep them at number 5. Yes, they lost at home, but it was a hard fought game. I'm sure some things will happen over the next couple of weeks or even the next week that will shake them further down in that power ranking of the SEC for me. But I couldn't just totally just throw them out when they fought as hard as they did and played Alabama as tough as they did, because it was a good game. They really played hard and didn't capitalize on some of the opportunities they had. There were opportunities. If Missouri would have taken care of the ball, done a couple of things differently, there were opportunities to win that game.
Yeah. Yeah, there definitely were. My number 5, I've got the Georgia Bulldogs. Despite the controversy with the win at Auburn,
Yeah,
Georgia is they
absolutely.
pulled out a win in a tough place to play, regardless of Auburn's record. They've got some big games coming up, and so
Yeah,
they may not stay in the top 5. But right now, I've got them at my number 5. You've got them at number 4.
yeah. I think they're that strong of a team. Honestly, I think they're right there neck and neck with Alabama. But you got to give Alabama the edge, with that win. So I can't put them above Alabama at this point. Yeah, I just until Kirby Smart and this Georgia team does something to prove me wrong, I got to keep them right there in that top 3-ish range, because they're always going to come up strong. Or like I said, until they prove us wrong, it seems that they
Mhm.
always come out and finish strong. So
Yeah. Yeah, they do. My number 4 is Tennessee. I was impressed by the win against Arkansas. Yes, it was in Knoxville. Arkansas, yes, the week before had been blown out by Notre Dame, which uh, sealed Sam Pittman's fate as head coach.
mhm,
Let's not overlook the fact that Bobby Petrino desperately wants that head coaching position.
absolutely,
He threw everything at Tennessee,
yeah,
everything that he could think of to try to pull out a win to make his case of why he should be the choice for the coach. And I don't think I know I'm getting off the I'm focusing more on Arkansas here than Tennessee. I really don't think that would be the best choice for Arkansas.
No.
I talked to someone this week, and they're like, "Well, what about? Isn't it like the Rich Rodriguez situation at West Virginia?" I'm like, No, it's not. It's apples and oranges.
No.
Rodriguez is from West Virginia.
Yeah.
Yes, there was controversy when he left, but not near. There was not a big scandal like there
No.
was when Petrino left Arkansas, and he broke their hearts because he had them. And they were
Yeah.
winning. They were a top 10 program. They were cruising. Uh, so I was impressed that Josh Heupel had his team ready for Arkansas, and is a 3-point win, but it was a tough win,
Yeah.
and I think it gave us a glimpse of the character of this Tennessee Volunteers team, which is going to be put to the test even greater fashion this week when they travel
Oh, yeah.
down to Tuscaloosa. So they're my number 4. Uh, I've got A&M at 3. I really debated, Darren, about putting them higher because of the reasons you stated. They're undefeated. I am so impressed by the job that Mike Elko is doing.
Absolutely.
This is a force to be reckoned with. This Aggies team, and barring a total collapse, they've got to be locked in as one of the playoff teams already.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Agree completely.
But
And that's, yeah, I agree completely.
on the flip side, on the other side, your number 3 is Alabama. Why do you put them there?
Well, they are the best undefeated team. That's my as simple as that. I think when you look at it top to bottom, Alabama is the best undefeated or not undefeated. They are the best team that has at least one loss, which they do. They have one loss. So keeping in the criteria of you're undefeated, in my mind, I've got to reward that. Got to have you there, especially at this point in the season. Then below those is whoever is the best team that has a loss or for Alabama has a loss. So that's where I put them there. I think they are the best team that has a loss on their schedule to this point, or
Yeah,
has a loss against them. I guess is a better way to say that.
yeah, agreed. We both have Ole Miss at number 2. The win against Washington State in Oxford was not
Ooh,
pretty at all. Is it safe to say, Darren, they were looking ahead to Georgia?
absolutely. There've been a lot of conversation about Lane Kiffin and his changes in the ways he does things, but I still think that some of that edgy Lane Kiffin still is very much in there, and so that I think that edgy part of him maybe they have a Washington State game plan. They're going to do their things. They're going to, but we're going to beat these guys. So he's sitting in his office at night, even having conversations about Georgia and what they're going to what they're going to do with Georgia. And I think that kind of filters through sometimes. I think that's what happened.
Yeah, that was Washington State's national championship game.
Absolutely.
As one of the 2 last standing members of the Pac-12, they had a
Mm-hmm.
chance to go into an SEC stadium, and they would have lived off that the rest of the year.
Yeah.
We beat an
Oh,
SEC team in their home stadium. So I think they put a lot more into that game than Ole Miss, which was like, all right, we got to play Washington State, but we really are trying to get ready for Georgia. We're going to
Georgia.
Athens. We got to be ready for the Bulldogs. What impressed me though was in the past, as you've said many times on this show, Darren, Big Game Lane would have shown up and it would have been
Absolutely.
a shocking upset,
Hmm.
thrown water on this upcoming week's Ole Miss Georgia game, but not this year. Ole
No.
Miss found a way to win. It wasn't pretty. So maybe they take the next step. We'll get to picks in a little bit later. Maybe they take the next step and actually are able to beat Georgia in Athens, which would, I think, shock a lot of people in the
Absolutely.
SEC.
But I think you're spot on. It says a lot about this team that they survived it
Yeah.
because this is a game, especially when it started going. I was getting texts from people. I know it's early, but have you seen the Ole Miss score? It's like, no, are you kidding? So once the game started going that way, as you said, this is a game that an Ole Miss team of the past would have lost. Wouldn't have got blown out by anything like that, but they would have figured out a way to lose this game. And this team figured out a way to survive it and win. So I think you're right. That definitely tells you something about this team.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. That takes us into 4 down territory. This has been a feature of the show since the very first season, hasn't it, Darren?
I think we started this very, very early.
Different graphics and
That's right. It's
intro
changed a little
intro
bit.
music and all kinds of that,
Yeah.
but
I think there might have been even a video at one point.
I think wasn't there a soundtrack, some music, you playing guitar?
Yeah, yeah, no, it was a friend of mine playing guitar.
Ah,
Yes, but yes, yes.
nice. Well, let's get into 4 down territory, starting with a reflection back on week 7 and our brown bag pick. Why do I think, Darren, I have an idea of what yours might be?
The flag is thrown, unsportsmanlike conduct on the officials. That's my well done. Well done. That's my brown bag. How about you?
Yeah, I could go along with that, but I want to throw another wrinkle out. If you've listened to any SEC shows, watched or listened to them this week, a theme that continues to come up is the decision to play Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer against Texas. Coming off surgery, it was a little early for him to come back. On one hand, you cannot fault Mateer for wanting to play. He's a competitor. He wants to be on the field. He wants to be leading his team. However, the player that we saw before the Texas game that was in everyone's Heisman conversation was not the player we saw in the Red River rivalry. He had that wrap on. I think at one point there was some bleeding there.
Yep.
Uh, he was taking shots from Texas. You credit Texas's defense, but that was not the John Mateer that we're used to seeing.
Absolutely.
Now, hindsight's 2020, of course, and I don't fault him for wanting to play. But at what point, Darren, do you think Brent Venables, as his coach, should have stepped in and say, "Yeah, we really would like to win this game. This is our biggest rival. I know you want to be out there, but for the sake of our future and trying to get into the playoffs, let's sit
Mhm.
another week." Do you think Venables made the right call here?
Honestly, there was a moment watching the game, especially when you started seeing the blood and everything. I thought, man, maybe I'm just being too critical, but I feel like this was a didn't wasn't the adult in the room and should have been, in a moment for Brent Venables. But I just kind of moved on past it. But to hear all the conversation kind of back up that thought, yeah, I think you have to look at this and say, man, you at least had to give it a shot. Let your defense do what they do. We even talked about it last week on this show. Let your defense do what they do. Ask your backup quarterback to just take care of the ball. Just don't lose the game for us. We don't need you to go out and be the hero and win it. We just need you to not lose the game for us. I think that would have been a much better path for this Oklahoma team and would have been a much better call on Brent Venables' part. How about you?
Yeah, I think probably the best decision would have been to rest Mateer for another game
Mhm.
because you look at their upcoming schedule. South Carolina is going to be no slouch as they
Right.
travel. OU travels to Columbia. They've got. Don't they go to Alabama this year?
Yes, I'm pretty sure that's right.
Which Alabama is going to be thinking of what happened last year in Norman.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
I mean, I think they've got LSU in Norman, and then they go to Tennessee. They go to Knoxville this year. So those are some really tough road games coming up, and you want Mateer at 100%. I heard something interesting. Paul Feinbaum and Matt Berry were talking about this, and they brought up the point that this actually hurts Oklahoma if they're on the bubble when it comes to playoff time. Because if Mateer had not played in the Texas game they lost, they could try to go the Florida State route and say, well, our starting quarterback wasn't in that game. Uh,
That's a
and then
great point.
there'd be the speculation,
Mhm.
as Matt and Paul brought up, that maybe they would have won if he had played. But you don't have that anymore. He played,
Yeah.
looked good, and they lost.
It's a great point.
That takes us to our post game quote of the week. Darren, what did you find?
You know, even though, as you said, we've talked about it on the show, you might not always be able to depend on Big Game Lane. in some of the games that the Ole Miss has struggled in, what you can always depend on is big quote Lane. He's going to throw you something, and I think he may have been a little upset with a certain section of the stands there in Oxford. Let's see what he had to say.
Um, I don't, I don't know. You know, we're a morning practice format team that should equate to playing well in the morning. Used to, but didn't feel like that. I thought our red zone offense showed up about like our student section did today. Very similar. So that's on us. I told them all week, man. The crowd probably won't be what it's been. You're gonna have to create your own energy. And we did that a little bit.
Kiffin does not disappoint on those quotes, and
No.
in their defense, it's October. It's still super hot outside,
Absolutely.
and we talked about the challenge. How do you get your people excited about Washington State?
Exactly, and I think the student body showed that you're going to win by 50. We're good. Y'all enjoy. We'll see you next week. We'll take a road trip with you. How's that? I think
Yeah.
you're exactly right. But he never disappoints. He'll come up with something.
Yeah, he will. He will. Good choice. As we look ahead to Week 8 and the matchups, as the SEC schedule we get into the thick of things, and we're going to see some separation. Who is your sure thing pick of the week? If I'm going to bet the farm, Darren, who do I need to bet on this week?
I can't, and we'll talk about this game more in a little bit. I can't believe I'm actually going to say these words out loud, since Vanderbilt is favored by 2.5 over LSU. They can't be my upset pick. So I'll go with Vanderbilt as my sure thing pick. Mind blown. They're favored by 2.5, but I got to roll with, as Matt Mitchell, we mentioned earlier, refers to him. I know we've talked about it before, but it cracks me up every time he says it. I got to go with my sweet baby boy Diego and the Commodores this week as my sure thing pick.
I'd be disappointed if you didn't.
I knew you would be. I knew you would be. How about you? Who's your upset pick?
My sure thing pick.
Oh,
We're
sure
going up
thing. That's right.
to
Sorry.
up into Lexington. The Longhorns are coming to town to face a Kentucky program that is continuing to find new ways to descend into the depths of college football. Texas coming off that big win. I think they come in, and it's going to be a demoralizing loss for Kentucky, and Mark Stoops' seat's going to get a little hotter.
I was going to say, depending on how bad of a loss it is, it could be a sure thing that somebody finds the money for that buyout. People are even more impatient this year.
They
James
found it in
Franklin.
Penn State, didn't they?
Yeah. So, oops. Yeah. So, if
Now, you
Texas
be
rolls,
nice to James Franklin. Come on.
I will say, JT Jazzy Chef, the first thing he texted me is it not insane that we are at a place right now where there's not even going to be a conversation about Vanderbilt wanting to hire him back? Because, I mean, since he left, literally at any point, if he would have left Penn State, Vanderbilt would have been like, Candace Lee would have been up in Pennsylvania helping him pack. Come on, I got, but we're at a point where that's not even a conversation. It's a little crazy. But back on topic, I didn't mean to do that. If Texas comes in and really hands an ugly, ugly loss to Kentucky in Lexington, it literally could be the final game of the Mark Stoops era.
Yeah, definitely. How about your upset pick of the week?
I have absolutely no reason to make this pick because I do not in any way, shape, or form believe in Mike Shula as an offensive coordinator. And I've been on the record with that since the preseason. That being said, we have not had a game. South Carolina has not had a game yet this year where you looked at that game and said, Lenore Sellers put this team on his back. 315 yards passing, 114, 125 yards rushing, three or four combined total touchdowns. We haven't really seen that yet. There's just something in me with it being in Columbia and all the talk about this week. This game was, they took this game away from us. All that kind of that chip on the shoulder stuff. I feel like this could be a moment where Lenore Seller stands out and really throws this team on his back and hands Oklahoma a very unfortunate loss in Columbia, South Carolina. So I'm going with the Gamecocks as my upset pick of the week.
What is that sound I hear? Loud booing from Norman, Oklahoma.
I think you're right. The next time I go into Oklahoma City or Oklahoma, I have to go in disguise.
Dress up like Kirby Smart.
Yeah, there you go. I'm practicing. We've got another 3 or 4 in us to do. How about you? Who's your upset pick?
Since you already alluded to the fact that we must be in some alternate universe with Vanderbilt being favored over LSU,
yes,
I'm going to go with the Fighting Tigers of Louisiana State University as my upset pick of the week.
Absolutely. As you said, I'd have been disappointed if you didn't.
I think this is going to be it's going to be a good game.
Yeah.
You have 2 guys that coached together. Clark Lee was Brian Kelly's defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. We've talked before about the great job he's done at Vanderbilt to the point where people want to come to Vanderbilt. And as you mentioned, no one's begging a former coach to come back because Vanderbilt's in a much better position. Diego is an X factor. But what I'm curious to see is when you look at that Vanderbilt team, I think on defense, the one area of weakness is their secondary.
Absolutely.
LSU has the receivers. They have the talent. Now, whether or not the offense can finally get rolling, because I think Vanderbilt is going to do a good job containing the LSU run game. They're going to force Nussmeier to air it out. The question is, can he do it? I think LSU's defense is going to show up. And you always know Diego's going to get his at some point. But this could really, if LSU cannot air it out, Darren, this could really turn into a good old fashioned SEC slugfest.
Absolutely. And I think you're spot on because with the wide receivers, tight ends, whoever the 6'7"
Trey'Dez Green.
Trey'Dez Green. I mean, have mercy. We're just gonna, everybody that's a DB, go cover him. I think that's going to be the Vanderbilt play. Surely with 4 of you, somebody can swat it away or something, right? But I think when you look at him, when you look at the wide receivers, I think the Vanderbilt attack plan has to be pressure. Get in the backfield, make Nussmeier uncomfortable because your receivers are going to be on point. You have to get him off point. You have to get him where he's overthrowing, where he's missing targets, not seeing downfield. That's got to be the hope of the Vanderbilt defense, especially with the secondary struggles that they've had this year.
Yeah. Last week against South Carolina, LSU turned the ball over 3 times. They turned the ball over in the red zone. South Carolina was not able to capitalize. I think if LSU turns the ball over 3 times in Nashville, Vanderbilt's going to turn those into points.
I think the turnover, as almost cliche as it sounds, that'll be one of your indicators of who wins the game. Because, you look at the Alabama game, two very, very costly turnovers by Vanderbilt that were obvious difference makers in that game. So it's been a little bit of an issue for both teams so far this year in big games. So I think that's going to be part of the tell of the tape when you look at who won this game. That's going to be one of the numbers that really stand out.
So we're making a little wager on this game. Whoever's team wins, the loser has to buy them lunch somewhere. So we'd like to hear from you who are listening and watching. If Vanderbilt wins, where should I take Darren to eat? And if LSU wins, where should Darren take me to eat? We'd love to hear your suggestions, your responses. Post a comment, send a message. We'd like to hear your feedback on that.
Absolutely.
And we'll let you know next week what you suggested in light of the outcome of the LSU Vandy game.
And I'll let you know how good it was. Oh, wait, no, that's.
I like the confidence.
This might be the only moment in all of our years of doing this show that when this game's coming, I can, hey, we're favored. I can say that. It might be the only shot I get.
It's like you're already practicing the victory formation.
I refuse to do that.
Well, we have 2 games of the week. We're changing the system a little bit. We usually go for 1 game of the week, but there's too many good games this week, so we
That's
couldn't
right.
narrow it down to just 1, so we're going with 2. One we've already talked about, and that's LSU Vanderbilt. Both teams coming into this game with a record of 5-1. Vanderbilt averaging a lot more points per game than LSU, but as we talked about before, LSU's defense is giving up a lot less yards per game. So
Absolutely.
something's going to have to give in this game. It's an 11 a.m. game, which neither one of us is a fan of. We'd like
No.
to see a later game, but it should be fun nonetheless.
And friend of the show, Matt Hollis, shared a stat with us just before we actually started recording that I feel it necessary to share as we're discussing this as the game of the week. The last time Vanderbilt and LSU met, and Vanderbilt both were ranked, and Vanderbilt was a favorite, was in 1990, and Vanderbilt won that game. Oh, and it was in Nashville. So does that mean anything? Yeah, typically no, but I like it.
Now that's he's my dentist. What's he doing giving you hope? He doesn't send me texts with hopeful messages for LSU's chances.
Well, but see, he's an A&M guy, so he doesn't really need.
Uh,
He's enjoy. See, he knows I'm talking good about A&M. That's where it comes from. But
I gotta see when my next cleaning's scheduled for.
I will give you this as a point in the favor of LSU. How's that? LSU overall leads the series 24-7-1. And of the last 3 games, last year in Baton Rouge was a pretty good game, but of the last 3 games, LSU has hit 50 or higher in 2 of those 3. So there's some stuff in the favor of LSU as well. So
Is this you emotionally protecting yourself in the case of a loss?
this is me taking a step back, and we've talked about this with Brandon as a Tennessee fan. He does this as well. Taking a step back and saying, boy, it would be so good if we won, but we usually lose. So here's what I'm thinking if we lose. I'm trying to prepare myself.
We need to have Brandon back on the show sometime, but you're right, and I hope he's listening. I would tell him this anyway, but my goodness, there's been times in the past where I've been like, I think Tennessee's going to win, and he'll be like, oh, they're probably going to blow it, and it's like listening to Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. It's like,
I have an image in my head of Eeyore standing on a football field in that Tennessee orange instead of his usual color.
his wife's a West Virginia fan, but she believes more in Tennessee, I think, than he does.
Than he does. That's hilarious.
Oh goodness. All right, how about our
So,
second game of the week? Speaking of Tennessee, that's a
yeah,
great
there.
segue, Darren.
That was.
The Volunteers are traveling south to Tuscaloosa to face the Crimson Tide of Alabama. Both teams putting out new starting quarterbacks this year. Uh, 2 seasoned coaches. So what do you think, Darren? We've talked about, we've already made our picks, but it's a night game.
Yep. Yeah, with it being a night game in Alabama, and Alabama is giving you no reason whatsoever to think that they're going to have a slip up, especially at home. This is a strong Alabama team with Ty Simpson. Now, that the one thing I will say, you've got to be concerned if you're an Alabama fan, is man, they running back. Goodness gracious, could they have any more injuries? I mean, have mercy. So that's obviously a concern. But yeah, I think this is a game where Alabama overcomes the conversation about the Florida State loss. I think they show just how strong they can be because to your point and what you said earlier about Tennessee talking about the Arkansas game, they're going to bring the thunder. I mean, Tennessee, it doesn't matter if it's in Tuscaloosa or not. Tennessee's going to show up to play. I think Joey Aguilar is a smart kid that knows that this is his one shining moment. He has a chance to really show out and get some draft attention on this level, this spotlight to this game that the entire country talks about. This is not just an SEC game. So Tennessee's going to show up. They're going to bring the thunder. But I think this Alabama team has shown strength of the offensive line, what Ty Simpson can do, not only athletically, but with his decision making and the strength of this defense, especially this defensive line. I think they can really hassle this Tennessee offense, and it'll make a difference.
What's the over-under on how many times we're going to hear Dixieland Delight?
Oh, it's higher than the over-under of the score would be my...
The mystery of the song continues. It mentions Tennessee, but nowhere in the song does it mention Alabama.
Yeah. Yeah. At the Vanderbilt game 3 weeks ago, whatever it was when I was there, the Vanderbilt Georgia State game, they tried to create their own little moment like that at the start of the fourth quarter, and they played Wagon Wheel by Darius Rucker. And I'm like, this dude's the biggest South Carolina fan in the world. What are you playing? Find a new tradition. What are you doing? I don't understand that at all. But anyway, yeah, didn't make sense.
Mysteries of the universe that we will never fully comprehend.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Thanks again for watching another episode. Watch for a second episode that will drop this week where we make our picks on every SEC game. Until then, we appreciate you listening, and y'all take care.
Have a great week.